Hello everyone, welcome back to Too Sweet MTG, and welcome to part 2 of our Phyrexia All Will Be One cube review. If you haven't seen it, last time out we looked at white, blue, black and red. A link to that video will be down in the description below. In this video we're going to be looking at green, multicoloured and colourless. And with all that out of the way, James, you want to take it away with our first green card?
So first off in green we have Armored Scrap Gorger, which is 1 green for an 0/3 Phyrexian beast. Armored Scrap Gorger gets +3/+0 as long as it has 3 or more oil counters on it. It can tap for 1 mana of any colour, and whenever Armored Scrap Gorger become tapped, exile target card from a graveyard and put an oil counter on it. This is pretty cool, I think. First off, it's worth acknowledging, there's a hierarchy of mana elves, and it tends to go the 1 mana ones that fix you, your birds, your noble, your hierarchs, etc. Then the 1 mana ones that don't fix you, then the 2 mana ones. But I think this is amongst the better of the 2 mana ones, and there are loads of them. So it feels like there's one in almost every set that's like 2 mana, make a tap for a mana, has some other stuff going on. But I think the fact that this is graveyard hate, which is and it's like super main deckable graveyard hate that you're not paying a really big cost for, and it becomes kind of a threat later on, is pretty interesting, and obviously it's fixing you. I think it will just be like, well, how many of the 2 mana dorks do you want? Because I think it's still probably in most decks not as good as Caryatid, because Caryatid, you just have that guarantee that you're untapping with it and you're getting your fixing out of it. And it also means Caryatid, you don't have to be like, oh, my deck doesn't have many other cheap creatures in, so I don't want to give them a target for Fatal Push or whatever. But on the other hand, if you're beating down like this is a 3/3 and like not that many turns, it's pretty relevant. Yeah, I think it's like definitely amongst the best of 2 mana dorks.
Yeah, completely agree. I think we're at the point where basically you're picking your flavour of these. Like, it's, if you want guaranteed, then it's the Caryatid. If you kind of want, before this, if you wanted a bit of aggression thrown in, you had like Paradise Druid, which had hexproof, but was also a 2/1. Like in the Warhammer set, I think it was Biophagus, which puts like a counter on creature when it comes in if you care about counters. But yeah, like if you're in any, if you have kind of like a green X mid rangey beatdown thing in your queue, this seems like a slam dunk. And even without that, just the fact that, yeah, like the exile ability, it does trigger on attack as well, because it's just when it becomes tapped. Like,
Yep.
this is alarmingly main deckable in a lot of decks. First couple of turns, use this to ramp you out ahead, or to ramp out your next couple of creatures, and then after 3 turns, it can start. Or actually, yeah, on turn you can tap this twice. Then on the third time, attack with it. It will then get the oil counter.
It will then become a 3/3, yeah.
So that's pretty good. Like on turn, like you play this on turn 2. Yeah, on turn 5, it is attacking as a 3/3 with the other things you ramped out. That seems pretty good. But that seems quite nice.
Yeah. No, I like it a lot. So it will be, and it kind of lends itself to that more slightly aggressive green deck where, like, you're trying to, instead of going up to Craterhoof, you're trying to like play this into like Questing Beast, into like,
Yeah.
I don't know, Elder Gargoth or something, and then you can start getting in with it.
Or you can ramp into our next card, Bloated Contaminator. It is 2 and a green for a 4/4 creature Phyrexian beast. It has trample, it has toxic 1, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you proliferate. So, talking of green beatdown, like, what happened to the vanilla test? When did that? Like, is this the death nail for the vanilla test? Like, 3 mana for a 4/4 trample is obscene, and then there's more on it.
Yeah, you do keep reading it and looking for a downside, don't you? And it's notably absent.
Yeah, like I do think personally, I think the toxic one is kind of flavor text. Like
Yeah.
like even with the proliferate of when this deals damage, there's going to be dead from beating them with the 4/4 well before they're dead from the toxic one. If you do have any kind of like plus 1 counter stuff, like if you can get a counter onto this, that's terrifying. If you can get a counter on this, swing through with it, will then keeps buffing its own power every time it deals more damage. That's very, very scary. Yeah, I think this card is obscenely good. Just like the rate of it, like there is no way a 3 mana 4/4 trample with upside can't be good.
Yeah, no, I like it a lot. I mean, it's obviously it's for a different sort of green deck than that traditional mono green. Here's my 8-drop deck, but I think this is very very powerful. I think the archetype it actually goes best in is there's a lot of good green creatures that pick up counters, like aggressive ones. Things like Experiment One, Pelt Collector. Um, there's quite a nice little archetype there. You can go into like some +1/+1 counter synergies or like proliferate synergies like this. And this is, this is a 3-mana 4/4 trample. It doesn't need the help. But when this is hitting and buffing a bunch of your other creatures too, then it's getting really, really strong. Um, yeah, I like this a lot. A good thing to play an elf into this as well. Like turn 2, here's my 4/4. That'll get it done a lot of the time. Yeah, as you say, I don't think the toxic's a massive deal. Like it is kind of toxic too, right, because of the proliferate. But as you say, they're going to be dead a long time before that. For toxic to be meaningful, you actually have to kill them when you couldn't kill them with damage. And yeah, I don't think it matters in this case. But yeah, no, I think proliferating counters onto your other cheap green creatures sounds pretty good to me. Cool. So next up we have Canker Bloom, which is 1 green for a 3/2 creature Phyrexian fungus. And you can pay 1, sacrifice it to choose 1, destroy target artifact, destroy target enchantment, or proliferate. So I think this is fairly it's kind of one slot probably in most cubes that this is competing for. Yeah, so in that spot you've got the classic Reclamation Sage, the new Outland Liberator, the Werewolf, which can also sack to disenchant, or it can flip to turn into a Trigon Predator if it becomes Night. And now you have this, where you also get the modality of sacking to proliferate. Um, for that sack to proliferate mode to be good, you do have to have like quite a lot of stuff to proliferate onto, because it's got to be better than a 3/2 body. It's kind of the bar, right, for that mode to actually be worthwhile. Um, so I think like if you don't really have like a counters theme in your cube, then you're probably better going with the one of the first two on that list. But I think if you do, this is a really good upgrade. Like it's very nice having synergy pieces for those decks, which are like cards you would play anyway and like serve other functions in other decks. Because there are there are a bunch of matchups where you just want whichever version of this card is available because you need to kill their giant artifact. Yeah, no, I really like this as an inclusion. I think it's like it gives you like a cube designer like more options, doesn't it? And that's quite nice.
Yeah, no, definitely. I completely agree. This is for me a better Outland Liberator, just purely because it doesn't introduce daybound, nightbound to the game.
That is an excellent, excellent point.
Just not having to worry about that is really, really nice. Like, just because even if it dies, there's always the element that you could be recurring it. So you do kind of need to keep track on it, unless you kind of like Scout's Honor that I'm never going to recur this, and you're never going to recur this, that kind of thing. But like, yeah, as a body as well, the 3 power means that it gets in for more damage. Like this can actually swing. The one part with Outland Liberator is that it is a human, which can be relevant. But just as a raw creature, I think I would personally still run Rex Age, because like green sounding into it and having your thing immediately, I do quite like that. Is quite a nice little thing, and having it as an ETB that you can flicker and get again and again, I do like. I think, and this is second, and then Outland Liberator is now a distant third, just for quality of life. I can't be bothered with that anymore.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that to be fair. I was like, yeah, Magic Online, you can Outland Liberator all day, that's fine, but no one needs to be keeping track of day
Yeah.
night and paper when there's like one day night card in the cube. That is not worthwhile.
All right, let's move on to Conduit of Worlds. It is 2 green green for an artifact that reads, you may play lands from your graveyard. It also has tap and choose target non-land permanent card in your graveyard. If you haven't cast a spell this turn, you may cast that card. If you do, you can't cast additional spells this turn and activate only as a sorcery. So having access to another Crucible of Worlds is nice. It's actually like the second set in a row we've had one of these effects. So this kind of, in Brothers War we had Perennial Behemoth. This goes along with Crucible of Worlds and along with Ramunap Excavator. With those cards, the base level of being able to like replay fetches from your graveyard to kind of give you perfect mana and a bit of deck thinning is always quite nice. But then you have the actually strong part of those cards, which is like replaying like Strip Mines to kind of lock your opponents out, or getting back your utility lands with things like your Urza's Saga. So this does that along with all the other ones. That is quite good. This also has the added ability to letting you recast a spell from your graveyard is really strong. Interesting, you can't do it the turn you actually play this because it says if you haven't cast a spell this turn. So I'm assuming it would include this. So basically, you have to almost like untap with this to start doing that. But I really like that ability. Like, I've got tons of like Golgari or Simic decks or Sultai decks that would really, really like this card, and I think in Cube it does have a place.
I think this ability is super strong. I think this might be the best of them. Hot
Really,
take.
really,
I
okay,
think
nice, yeah.
like I think it is worth the extra mana to have this just be good in so many more situations. Like, sure, you don't get your permanent the turn it comes in, but you get all the other stuff the turn it comes in. You can still play your land, and then the next turn you can play a land plus play a permanent, and it just makes it good in so many situations where none of the other ones are. Like, yeah, you can build your like super streamlined, like I'm gonna try and always have strip mines and whatnot deck. But like the reality is sometimes you don't have strip mines. Sometimes you like sit looking at your crucible being like, why did I put this in my deck? I'm such a moron. And like this doesn't do that. This lets you like you can just play your Nissa out of your graveyard next turn. I think this card's fantastic. But you should also take this with a pinch of salt because I always really like crucible effects.
Yeah,
So like, you should probably just like put it down a tier from wherever I think it is. But I think this card's really good. I kind of think it's the best one. I'm willing to be proven wrong, but I think it's worth that extra mana. You don't like that often want to crucible like so early unless you have fast bond anyway. I think the card's great. I'm really excited to play with this one.
I think the main thing is that I don't think you need 4 of them. I don't think you need Conduit of Worlds plus Crucible plus Ramen Excavator plus Perennial Behemoth. So it's kind of, which one do you run? I think you cut Ramen Excavator for this card. I think you keep Perennial Behemoth because it's colorless, so other decks can run it, and it has the Unearth. You have Crucible at your 3 mana, and then you have this because of the activated ability. I do like that activated ability. What's your
I
thought?
think I'd have the I think I'd cut the behemoth because it's just five mana is so much more, and yeah, it's not green, but also like the majority of the decks that want this effect are green. And I just think 5 mana is a lot.
Cool. Do you want to take it away with our next green card?
Yeah, so next up we have Evolving Adaptive. It is green for a 0/0 creature Phyrexian warrior. Evolving Adaptive enters the battlefield with an oil counter on it, and Evolving Adaptive gets +1/+1 for each oil counter on it. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, if that creature has power or toughness greater than Evolving Adaptive, put an oil counter on Evolving Adaptive. So this is, I think we mentioned with the earlier 3 mana 4/4, the evolve sort of archetype in green. The I've got a bunch of growing creatures with +1/+1 counters. I can proliferate onto them. They start beating down early, and they just grow as the game goes on. I don't think this is the best of them, but it is another one of them, and I think like if you want to really lean into that archetype, like you do want as many like 1 mana things that do this as you can get. Um, it is kind of annoying that this doesn't work with the like hardened scales effects. Um, because it's getting an oil counter and then +1/+1 for each oil counter is not the same as getting a +1/+1 counter for hardened scales. So that's kind of a shame because there's also there's a bunch of creatures that have that effect as well. So probably not if you're doing the whole +1/+1 counter thing really hard, but if you're just doing like green aggro with some proliferate, this is really really cool. I think. Like you just want redundancy in this slot, and this is another one.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah, I didn't clock it didn't work with just normal +1/+1 counters.
And it is like the other ones of this do have an upside, right? Like Pelt Collector and the Experiment one, which regenerates.
Not having the synergy with the +1/+1 counters means it will go in. In my head, that's kind of lost a lot of what I like about the card, if that makes sense. Just like the ability, like, but then I could just be asking too much for a 1-mana aggressive creature. Maybe it is just fine.
I mean, it still does work with all the proliferate stuff, just not the hardened scales, and there's a green white and a green black creature which do that as well, which sees some play. Yeah.
Cool. So next up, we have Nissa Ascended Animist. It is 3 green green, Phyrexian green for a legendary planeswalker Nissa. It has completed, which means that Phyrexian mana can be paid with either green or 2 life. For each Phyrexian mana paid with life, this planeswalker enters with 2 fewer loyalty counters. So if you play the full 7 in mana, it comes in with 7 loyalty. If you pay 6 mana and 2 life, it comes in with 5 loyalty counters, or you can just pay 5 mana and it comes in with 3 loyalty counters. It has the loyalty abilities +1, create an XX green Phyrexian horror creature token, where X is Nissa Ascended Animist loyalty. Has a -1 that is destroy target artifact or enchantment, and a -7 until end of turn, creatures you control get +1/+1 for each forest you control and gain trample. So this is a lot of magic card. I think basically you play this card as soon as you can. If you're playing this for 5 mana and 4 life, it still comes down with 3 loyalty. You plus it straight away. You make a 4/4. That's still really good, and you can just keep doing that every turn just to kind of give yourself that board state. If you have the 7 mana, you probably just win the game. If you have any kind of board state, that's effectively like an overrun or a hoof. So yeah, the +1, the -7 are really good. The -1 is kind of utility. That's very like it's fine. You're not putting it in your deck for that, but it's a nice to have in case it does come up. But a couple of bits to note on this is that I'm assuming because the token is linked to Lissa's loyalty, if Lissa is removed, the tokens just die. Is that correct?
So no, so these are XX, not star star. Is
Oh, okay.
the
So
difference? So it will be set at the time that ability resolves.
I like that more then. That is
Yeah.
much better. Okay.
It is worth noting there's a bit of like rules weirdness here, right, with the XX because so if I activate this, my Nissa goes up to 8,
Yeah.
say, and the ability just resolves. I'll get an 8/8. If you bolt Nissa with the ability on the stack, you will get a 5/5
Oh, okay.
because it is the
Yeah.
loyalty as the. But if you Hero's Downfall with the ability on the stack, then you still get an 8/8 because it is the last known loyalty of Nissa.
Right.
It's
That's. I'm
yeah,
glad you explained that to me.
it's a weird one.
Yeah.
It is. It will look for that loyalty because Nissa is no longer there. It will use the last known effect own value of Nissa's loyalty. It's a bit of a weird one. That yeah, that is how that works. But it does mean you get your +1 for plussing it as well. So it does come down and make an 8/8, which is really nice.
Yeah. Yeah, that's super strong. This card is kind of actually making me want to see if like something like Arena Rector. We spoke about it earlier for an actual Super Friends deck, but this card doesn't need other Planeswalkers to be good. This is just good. If you can play if you can get your Arena Rector in the graveyard, go and get this, or like your Khan or your Ugin, something like that. They all going to win the game. Like I think this is super super strong.
Yeah, I'm really high on this card. Maybe it's possible I'm too high, but I kind of think this is the best card like mono green, proper like ramp mono green has got in quite a while.
That's interesting. Yeah.
So, or like often an issue you can have with that deck is unless you have exactly Craterhoof Behemoth, most of the big green things are like Avenger or Planeswalkers or whatever. Are like you play them, I'll like create a massive board, but I'll then pass the turn and you get a turn to like do your worst, you know. Um, so having another thing that will just come down and kill you, like for 7 mana, if like any reasonable board, like say ramping out a couple of dogs, you're at least getting like +5/+5, +6/+6 to all your guys. You've got some elves, you've got some tokens, whatever. This will kill you the turn it enters, and you can do that without having to like put an 8-drop in your deck that only does that. Because this is also really good to like if this is the thing you have to play on turn 5, that's still really good. It's gonna come in with 3 loyalty, but you plus it up to 4. You make a 4/4. Next turn, you're making a 5/5. Great. If they've got like a signet or something, you can just play it when you've got your 5 mana, which you're in mono green. That's probably like turn 3. So you can just play it like minus kill your signet. It's actually quite strong. Yeah, no, I actually think this is really big. I think the flexibility is great. Yeah, a problem you can end up with in that deck is as well, like, I have some dorks and I have some 8 drops, and I don't have a lot in between, and like sometimes that's a problem because the 8 drops are too slow, and this like fills that problem whilst also doing the 8 drop thing when you need that. Yeah, I think it's really good.
No, yeah, this seems like as I said, yeah, it's a lot of magic card. It seems really strong.
Sure is.
Talking of a lot of magic card, do you want to take it away with this big lad?
I sure will. Tyranox Rex is 4 green, green, green for an 8/8 creature Phyrexian dinosaur. This spell cannot be countered. Has Trample, Ward 4, Haste, and Toxic 4. Those are some abilities. Try and break it down a bit. 7 mana, 8/8. Can't counter it. Can't kill it the turn it comes in. Trample, Haste. I don't think the toxic 4 is good against people trying to like block it and soak up some of the damage, I guess is the idea. Because toxic will, if they soak up 7 of the damage, you will still get your toxic trigger. It doesn't care how much you hit them for. But except that, I mean, this is a 7 drop that will kill lots of people, but like so will lots of 7 drops. I don't really think this is the fatty you want. Would be my inclination. Ward 4 is good, but Ward 4 is not hexproof, especially on a 7 drop. It means you'll basically always get your first hit in. They're not very likely to have 4 mana up, but like they can untap, pay 5 mana, and Swords to Plowshares this, and that's not great. And they can actually they can take a hit from this. It's not because the deck that you're playing 7 drop in is generally not going to be an aggressive deck. So you're not like putting them under loads of life total pressure. In most cases, maybe you are. Maybe you had like a Nissa going, you attack them with some lands or whatever. But in a lot of cases, you're paying your big guy and trying to kill them from like 15, 20 life, and this will take a couple of hits to do that, especially if they have some blockers. And they can interact with it. Like, I think it's good. It will win you plenty of games, but I think there are better ones. Like, compare this to like the green Tyrannid guy in the Warhammer sets, for example. I think is like a lot stronger than this card.
No, that's fair. No, I see. I actually quite like this card. So the lack of hexproof means it doesn't. It's a comparison to something like Carnage Tyrant, which has can't be countered, trample, and hexproof, and is a 6, like a 7/6 or something like that.
Yeah,
This is an 8/8. What? So I agree with everything you said in terms of like at the point you are ramping this or casting this, your opponent is most likely going to be able to, if they have removal, to deal with it. But what I do like is that it is a threat that they don't have blockers. It's basically killing. You are killing them in 2 turns. If they have any kind of blockers, you're still killing them in 3 because you will get what you said about the like always getting the 4 poison counters no matter how much tramples over. Means that if they're just kind of playing to the board and soaking up damage, they are still dead in 3 turns from the turn you play it because it has haste. I do like that aspect of the card. I do think it is a way of getting through like a board stall or something like that. Like if they have enough stuff to kill it, you're taking out a lot of their board with them. But I think it's more likely you're going to be getting through for like the first turn. You get through for 2 damage. They get toxic 4. They don't have any blockers the next turn, or they might have 1, soak up a bit of damage. You're guaranteeing to kill them on on the 3rd turn, either from combat damage or from the toxic 4. I do like that aspect of it, but yeah, I do agree. 7 mana for something that can still be killed.
yeah, I can see that. I can definitely imagine I'm underrating the toxic part. I think so. I mean, comparing it to Carnage Time, and I always felt like Carnage Time was like basically a sideboard card. Because like it's good against people who are trying to counter and kill everything, but like people can actually just go over the top of like just a big dumb idiot in cube. Um, this is a bigger idiot that kills you quicker than Carnage Tyrant. Like the haste is really good.
Yeah,
So yeah, like I definitely like see it as a main deck card. Like, would you like this over like Avenger of Zendikar, for example?
I think so.
Thinking of like other big green stuff that sees play. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I prefer this to Avenger.
Okay.
Like as a card by itself, I think this does more. Avenger has more kind of synergies if you're in the right kind of deck, but you do need to kind of follow up with lands to actually be doing anything with Avenger. Like the 0/1s aren't going to be doing anything. Like I think like I'm looking at my own cube. The only 7 I have in there right now is Hornet Queen.
I like this more than Hornet Queen.
I do too. I don't know. Like I think this one is definitely worth a test. I think it'll either I think this will finish a fair few games, but also it might just be a big dumb 8/8. That is also the thing with
Dumb
this one.
8/10 games,
No, I don't. Yeah.
nothing wrong with a big dumb 8/8. Yeah, no, okay, yeah, I'm kind of on board.
All right, let's move on to our first multicolored card. We have a Traxxa Grand Unifier. It is 3 green, white, blue, black for a 7/7 legendary creature Phyrexian Angel. It has Flying, Vigilance, Death Touch, and Lifelink. And when a Traxxa Grand Unifier enters the battlefield, reveal the top 10 cards of your library. For each card type, you may put a card of that type from among the revealed cards in your hand, and then put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So this is another chunker of magic card. As a body, we like 7/7, Flying, Vigilance, Death Touch, Lifelink. That is very, very, very good. With that enter the battlefield field effect, I think you're probably getting easily 3 to 4 cards. I think you're getting at least a creature, at least a land, either one of instant or sorcery, and either one of artifact or enchantment would be my guess in the average kind of spread. I think you're getting 4 on average, worst case 3, best case 5, maybe there's a planeswalker in there, that kind of thing. You can blink it, which is interesting, but I don't think you need to be blinking it by the time this comes down. Why this is on the list and why I think it's going to get into my cube is that it is a reanimation target that you can also natural order for. Despite the wide range of big dumb green things that we've kind of seen in this video and just there's out there's actually very few you kind of want to cross over into reanimate, into like reanimate strategies. Dragon Lord Ataka was one for a while. I think that's kind of been pushed out just by power level. This, I think, fills that slot. Like on this channel, we've previously spoken about before about how liking reanimation targets to also be artifacts, so you can still so you can tinker them into play, so you can goblin welder them into play. Having a reanimator target that you could also natural order for wasn't something I knew I wanted until I saw this, and now I really, really want it. I think this card is very, very good.
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool. I agree with that. I think you're getting like 4 cards or basically almost every time, and like presumably meaningful ones. I think it's. I also just quite like having reanimation targets, and this is from like a designy point of view, not from a power level point of view. But like, I like that this is a reanimation target where it's like you get it back, you get like this massive advantage. They have to kill it, you're ahead a bunch of cards, but the game is not necessarily over. Like you still can play a game of Magic after that, and I quite like it when the reanimation decks play out a bit more like that than like a Gristlebrand or an Archon, where it does kind of feel like the game's just over. Also, like, it's just me. I kind of want to cast this guy,
Let's go, James. Let's
this
go.
is going in my. I want to have like Niv Mizzet. I want to have the 5-color Niv Mizzet and this guy at the top of my curve. I'm gonna find so many cards. I'm just gonna be like Sylvan Caryatids and that 5-mana dork we had, and then this nonsense, and it's gonna be great. Yeah, no, I think this is really cool. I like the crossover of natural order, reanimation, just massive value guy. Like, why does it have so many keywords as well? 7/7 Flying, Vigilance, Death Touch, Lifelink. Like, you can't win the game when this is in play, and if you spend a turn killing this, they've just drawn a million cards. Yeah, no, I think it's really good.
So, do you want the lore reason why Atraxa has those abilities?
Oh yeah, go on.
Atraxa was made by all the Praetors apart from Urbrask. Urbrask kind of just buggered off and didn't get involved. So Atraxa was made by the other Praetors, so they all gave her a bit of themselves. So that's why she has like Flying, Vigilance, Death Touch, and Lifelink to represent the 4 colors.
That's kind of cool.
Is what I believe in. Like, yeah, I think that was what the story was when they first printed the one in the Commander decks a few years ago, the Proliferation one.
Yeah, that makes sense. Nice.
This channel also does lore occasionally, very occasionally.
I'll not be contributing to that part of it. I would just be saying words and getting destroyed in the comments. It would not go well.
All good. All right, do you want to take our next multicolored card?
Yeah. So next up we have Bladehold Warwick. It is 1 red and a white for a artifact equipment. It has, I suppose I'll say it again, 4 Mirrodin, exclamation mark. So it comes in attached to a 2/2 red rebel. It has equip abilities you activate of other equipment cost 1 less to activate. It has equipped creatures have double strike, so that includes the thing this is attached to. And you can equip for 3 a red and a white. The hot take for you, Daniel, I think this is meant to go in red white equipment.
Yep.
Yeah, looks really good. So as well, double strike plays really well with other equipment that boost power. So yeah, like I think quite a common play pattern will be you play this as your creature, you're then equipping other equipment to this creature. And if they kill the creature, you have an equipment left behind. Your equipment deck presumably likes this. The equip cost of this itself is obscenely expensive. It's 5 mana. It doesn't get reduced by this, only reduces the equip cost for others. But maybe you have like a Pure Steel Paladin or something going. That would be great. And if not, like, you played a 3 mana 2/2 double strike at the worst. Like, that's fine. It's not great, but it's fine. Yeah, I like this a lot. I think, yeah, if Boris equipment is a thing in your cube, put this card in. If it's not, don't.
Yeah, I'd agree. Yeah, I think it's really solid. I do kind of want to give out on Mirrodin for another reason, actually, if I'm honest with you, at this point, because this is the last Mirrodin card we have on the list. Where was my mythic like 6 mana one? I want something in. I wanted something in between Batterskull and Cauldron Complete.
Okay, yeah, I could see it.
Where is that?
And it could be mirrored. It could be mirrored and complete or Phyrexia. Yeah.
There could be something. Yeah, like there is a rare one. We didn't talk about it because it was a bit too expensive to kind of move around. But it's like a 5 mana 4/4 flying dragon. It's a dragon, but it has the Mirrodin thing, so it gives a thing +2/+2. It's not fantastic, so that's why we haven't really spoken about it. It was their chance to give me another cool big artifact type thing, but unfortunately we didn't get it. What we did get, however, was Koto Dancing Shadow. It is 2 blue-black for a legendary planeswalker Koto. It comes in with 3 starting loyalty. It has a static ability of whenever 1 or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, you may return one of them to its owner's hand. If you do, you may activate loyalty abilities of Koto twice this turn rather than only once. It has a +1 of up to 1 target creature can't attack or block until your next turn. It has a 0 of draw a card, and a -2 of create a 2/2 colorless drone artifact creature token with Death Touch, and when this creature leaves the battlefield, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. So I do think this is good. I do like Koto. I like all the abilities on it. The plus means it can help your creatures get through. It can also nerf your opponent's best creatures so it can't attack you. That is quite nice. It's protecting itself as well in that respect. The 0 of drawing a card, I do really like that. Obviously, that's good. And it'll probably be the one that you use off the static ability. Like you're probably going to try and get a creature through. Or you're either going to make the creature try and get it through for damage, and then draw the card afterwards. Or if you're ahead, you can just draw 2 cards and get your win conditions and stuff. The main deck I think this goes into, shockingly, is ninjas, because that wants to be returning things to hand. Like the top ability, you kind of want to play like your fairy seers, like cheap creatures that have evasion, return to your hand, that kind of thing. Or if you return a ninja creature, you can ninjutsu it back in again. In those decks, I think it's good. I don't actually think it's as good as the original Kaito. I think I like that one a little bit more, and I don't know how many multicolored cards you want in a ninja section that aren't actually ninjas, because you have like Fallen Shinobi. You also have Yuriko in the multicolored slot. I think this is a cool card, but I think the one deck it goes into has better options, and I think that's kind of the tricky aspect. James, what's your take? Am I being a bit too narrow with that? Do you think, or
I don't think. I mean, I think it's a really cool Planeswalker. I really like that recent Wizards have moved away from Planeswalkers being like, here's 3 boring value abilities that fit in this color, to like they sort of have specific roles and like tactical implications for your games. And like you build around them a bit more. I think that's really cool. This one, I like a lot. I think the yeah, it's nice as well, like returning like creatures with good ETBs. Like Spell Stutter Sprite was a classic ninja
Ooh, nice.
enabler, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think on like raw power level, compared to other options available for 4 mana planeswalkers, I don't think it quite stacks up. Like the original Kaito was a 3 mana walker, which is just like can get downs. It's so much more likely to come down uncontested because like I'm playing your planeswalker on an empty board is huge. Um, Whereas this, sure, the +1 theoretically protects itself, but it's also not accomplishing. It's not progressing your game in any way. That +1, you really like. It's kind of fine to do it the turn it enters, right? But you really don't want to just sit there +1ing on one of your opponent's creatures. At that point, what you've played is like a really bad Hero's Downfall for 4 mana that they can just get rid of by attacking it. So you need removal with it to protect it, because I don't think it fears itself, but not well, I would say. But then like 4 mana, you 0, you draw a card, it's fine, but it's not, I can put Jason Mind Sculpture in cubes,
Yeah.
so I've heard.
Yeah.
This ain't it. Yeah, I think cool card. Like, if you want to do a ninja thing, it seems sweet. But yeah, I agree with all of your criticisms. So next up, we have our Gruul card. It is Miglor's Maze Crusher. It is 1 red and a green for a 4/4 legendary creature Phyrexian beast. Miglor's enters the battlefield with 5 oil counters on it. You can pay 1, remove an oil counter from Miglor's. It gains Vigilance and Menace until end of turn. You can pay 2 and remove 2 oil counters from Miglor's. It gains +2/+2 until end of turn. Or you can pay 3, remove 3 oil counters from Miglor's to destroy an artifact or an enchantment. Yeah, this is a cool card. It's really big, is the first thing. Like, it's a 3 mana 4/4. Gruul Stompy's like historically been like pretty bad, but I feel like they keep printing really good cards for it. So at some point, it presumably becomes good.
Minsk and booze now a thing,
I
James.
mean,
I
Minsk and
think
Boo's
it's yeah.
heinous. Yeah, like this card does not compare well to Minsk and Boo, but very few cards do.
No, but it comes down the turn
I think,
before. Like you
yeah,
play this and
yeah,
then you play Minsk and boo. That's
exactly. I think it's just a lot of pressure, isn't it? The abilities are decent. The abilities are threatening. I think you know, you generally aren't going to use them until you like don't have a bunch of other stuff to do with your mana, or until like they're killing your opponent. It's worth noting, like you're capped on how many times you can use them by the oil counters, but you can like use that +2/+2 twice in a turn.
yeah.
So this is always threatening to be like, and pump 5 mana into it. It's now an 8/8 Vigilance Menace this turn, and that's quite a lot.
Like you could be doing that on turn 4, like technically.
Yeah. The Also, just having that 1 mana one available means that like it's very hard for your opponent to like plan blocks for this, because they can't just leave one creature back. They have to leave 2 creatures back to give it menace at any point. And they don't know if you need all of your mana next turn. So, maybe you don't actually want to spend that 1 mana because you want to play your 5-drop, but they kind of have to respect that you could. And obviously the 2 mana one has a massive threat of activation, since this isn't sorcery speed. The disenchant's really expensive. It's not like particularly good to like pay 6 mana to like disenchant something. Like it's not like it's coming down early and killing a signet very much, because it's a lot of mana to do that. But it will be like contextually really useful later. Yeah, no, I rate this pretty high. Like it's not. I don't think it's like one of the most powerful cards in the set, but I think it's like very solid.
Yeah, a decent role player in a beatdown deck. The bottom ability will be mostly flavor text until the point it's very relevant, and then it'll be
Yeah,
nice to have. But most of the time, it's a 3 mana 4/4 that occasionally can kind of like trade up, or you can protect it kind of if they block it, that kind of thing.
yeah, and it does. If you have this in your deck, it makes sort of their enchantment removal a massive liability as well, because this isn't like sacrifice it, kill your O-ring, get my thing back. This is kill your O-ring. I have this 4/4
Yeah,
plus whatever thing you O-ringed. It is, yeah. When it comes up, it'll be really good.
That's it. All right, let's move on to Nahiri the Unforgiving. It is 1 red and a hybrid Phyrexian Boros and a white for a legendary planeswalker Nahiri that comes in with 5 starting loyalty, but it has completed, which means that you can pay the hybrid Phyrexian mana and it will come in with 2 fewer loyalty. It has a +1 of until your next turn, up to 1 target creature attacks a player each combat if able. It has another +1 of discard a card, then draw a card, and it has a 0 of exile target creature or equipment card with mana value less than Nahiri's loyalty from your graveyard. When you do, you create a token copy of it. That token gains haste and exile it at the beginning of the next end step. So, this is interesting. So, firstly, 3 mana planeswalkers, as we've kind of discussed already in this video, and in general, can be quite good. So, you can complete this out on turn 3 for 3 loyalty. We do like that. The +1 is a interesting way of protecting itself. It can make 1 creature not attack Nahiri. It has to go to the player. So that is kind of you're kind of protecting it with your face. So that's fun. It also means if your opponent has a utility creature that you want to get rid of, you can make it attack and then you can hit it with a blocker. That kind of stuff's quite interesting. That line is less likely to come up, but when it does, it will be very strong. The second ability, the second +1 for Rummage is good. It's perfectly fine. It does feed into the bottom ability. The bottom ability, I'm trying to work out if I like it or not. Important is a 0, so you don't lose loyalty for activating it, which is strong. It doesn't do the main thing that I wanted it to do, which I thought you could like reanimate like a Batterskull with this, but that doesn't work because the Batterskull will have haste. The Germ token it's equipped to will not have haste, so that doesn't do anything. Yeah, I was thinking about this earlier. Like in aggro, I'm not sure you want this over a creature. I don't like. You just rather have a 3 mana spell. But like, the more mana your Boros deck can make, the more I like this. Like in like a mid-rangey deck, we're kind of on like getting like if you cast this on turn 3 and just get back a Rabble Master, that's going to get through for some damage. Or you can get back like a White Plume Adventurer for some more initiative. I think as well. There are some good utility creatures. There's some good aggressive creatures. At 5, if you pay this for the non-completed cost, if you get this down with 5 loyalty, that 0 is getting back like actual like big angels or like dragons, which come in with haste and will be a way of kind of pushing you over the edge. So the only place I can see this is in like a chunky Boros thing, but then I'm still not sure because I'm having a hard time evaluating this card. What's your take, James?
Yeah, I sort of thought about this one for a while. I think it just sucks, actually. Like,
Yeah,
I've it's like if you could play it on 3, it only has 3 loyalty. Like if you get like a Realm Master, it dies. Because it comes in on 3 loyalty. Oh, sorry, no, it's a 0, isn't it? No, it's a 0. Yeah. But sure, so you get like 1 hit in with your Rabble Master, but like, as if you just played a Rabble Master on turn 3. You know, that seems a lot better. And the +1, like, I feel like rummaging is what you're gonna do with this card most, but it's just so much. Like, for 4 mana you could play like a coercive bottle and you draw a card every turn. And the other +1 is like, no, I feel like most of the time I want my opponent to attack Nahiri
yeah,
because it doesn't do anything.
yeah.
Like,
That is one of the best things about Planeswalkers. They gain you some life.
yeah. No, I think I'm off it. I think all the modes are too low impact. Like, I think the power is meant to be in the 0, right? But the 0 is like only does aggressive things, but is worse than playing an aggressive creature. Because it's not like you just play this and automatically have like 3 great things in your graveyard to get back. Because you have to do it like multiple times before it starts actually like being good. And you just don't have like 3 good things in your graveyard when you play this on turn 4 in your aggressive deck. And they exile each time, so you only get each one back once. Seems really hard for me for this to be better than just like putting a 3 or 4 mana creature in your deck.
No, I do agree. I think there's something we can both agree on about this card, and no hate is meant when I say this. But can we agree her arms look really stupid? Have you seen them? They're
Yeah.
just like duct taped onto her hands.
Well, one of them looks stupid. I can't see the other one.
Okay,
I'm going to assume the
that's
other
fair.
one's equally stupid.
The other one could,
but,
yeah, exactly.
yeah, the other one could be a completely normal arm. I don't know, but it seems improbable.
Again, look, no hate to the artist, no hate to is that Chase Stone, none at all. It's very well done, but I think it looks
If
really
a
silly.
brief said draw stupid arms on
Yeah.
there, then yeah, top work.
Yeah.
Yeah, next up we have Otari, Sun's Glory. It is 3 a red and a white for a 3/3 legendary creature Phoenix. It has flying, lifelink, and haste. Whenever Otari Sun's Glory attacks, you get an experience counter. Then create a 2/2 red rebel creature token that's tapped and attacking for each experience counter you have. And it also has a activated ability of 2 a red and a white, and tap an untapped rebel you control, remembering it creates rebels itself, to return Otari from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. This is like a pretty interesting card to me. It's it's just like 5 mana haster. It's like it's good, but there are better ones, right? Like it's not as good as Glorybringer or the or Thundermaw Hellkite or something in terms of just getting your opponent dead. So we really need to be getting our money from the recursion, I think. Like obviously you get the 2/2, but the 2/2 will often get eaten is I think the issue. And the recursions, like it is threatening. If you can like get the rebel and they don't eat the rebel, then they're in kind of a tough spot because like if their removal doesn't exile and they just like lightning bolt this, then you're threatening to just get it back next turn. It's unfortunate it comes in tapped, so you can't attack for it for turn. Do it. So maybe it's a bit slow. But the thing is, if you like you attack with this, but they have like any creature, they can just block your rebel. The rebel comes in attacking, and then they can untap lightning bolt your Atari. Like it's a 5 mana 3/3. It is dying to be killed. And then you're fresh out of luck. 'Cause it's pretty unlikely you have like other rebels lying around. I think it's an interesting card. I don't think this is like making the cut a lot of the time. I think there are like more exciting stuff you can do at 3 mana. I don't really know what deck wants this. Even if you're like Boros, either like you could be playing like a Gideon or something for less mana than this. There's definitely games it'll run away with, but there's also there's a lot of exile removal in cubes. I think it's a bit underpowered for cube. What do you think?
So I actually really like this card. So I like it for a couple of reasons. So rate wise, one of the things that it it's a chunky Rebel Master. This does snowball. So it comes in uh, the first turn it makes 1/2/2. The second turn you get a second experience counter. So it then creates 2 rebels. So it is going up every turn. Every turn it is attacking with more. So you're more likely. So if it survives the first turn, you're more likely to have more rebels for when it is removed later. So this is a commander card. This is from the commander product. That's I guess one of the reasons that it's 5 mana, that kind of thing. But so I do like the fact that this does snowball, and damage wise, this will really stack up if it's not answered. The other reason I do like it as well is that Boros tokens is a kind of like not default with Boros, but kind of like Boros does struggle with its identity because it's 2 aggressive colors that aren't good when combined to make an aggressive deck. But one thing they are both good with those aggressive colors is they both make tokens very well. You have like Adeline in white, you have Rebel Masters in red. Doing a token thing in those colors does work. It is a way of linking them. There's the there's the 1 and a white enchantment that buffs all your tokens up, that kind of thing. This as a signpost card in those strategies, I like it for. I think it's something interesting to do in Boros, and that is something I am looking for. So from a design point of view, I am actually really high on this card. When the power level of mine goes down a little bit, this will probably actually go in. I actually quite like this, if I'm honest with you.
Yeah, no, I can definitely see that. I think maybe I was sort of assuming that it always dies when if it does live for a couple of turns, it does run away with the game really quickly. Like you get 2/2/2s the second turn and 3/2/2s. That is really strong. And like even if you just get the first one, the recursion is kind of threatening. You don't have to do it straight away. I think this does actually go up a meaningful amount as well if you have like 1 or 2 other rebels in your deck. because then in the scenario where like this attacks the 2/2, then they kill this, you can just draw a rebel later, play your rebel, get back this immediately. I don't think there are like great rebels that normally see play, but there's like Unsettled Mariner as a changeling, or like Mutavault even.
Mutavault's a good shout, actually. I do like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. No, I can see it. I don't think it's like going in powered cube necessarily, but I can see it in a lot of other cubes.
It's a role. It's a role player until something cooler comes along. I think that's actually the where I am with it. But
Sure. Well, it's the sort of card right where you can put it in for like a couple of cubes, and then if there's always a cool 5-drop creature. Like there's you could switch it out as you like, right?
all right, let's move on to our next one. Next, we have Tyvar Jubilant Brawler. It is 1 black and a green for a 3 loyalty legendary planeswalker Tyvar. You may activate abilities of creatures. Creature. Because I said
Creatures.
Tyvar.
Activating the creatures.
All
Oh my
right, all right.
god.
All right. You may activate abilities of creatures you control as long as those creatures had haste. It has a +1, untap up to 1 creature, and -2, mill 3 cards. Then you may return a creature card with mana value 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. So I'm probably going to throw this over to you pretty quickly because I know you've been doing some brewing with this, and I'll kind of set it up before I do throw it over. But yeah, this is a cool card, but I'm struggling to think of where outside of like combo you want this, because like the fair version of this is just like mill some mana dorks, replay your mana dorks. That's not really what you want to be doing with this. But I know you've been doing a bit of brewing revolving around this and like devoted druid stuff. Do you kind of want to like is that where you think this could see some play? Is that kind of what you're thinking? Is this cubable in that context?
Yeah, so I think this is fantastic at enabling the druid combo because so for those who don't know, this for combo of devoted druid, and if you can tap it for mana, untap it by putting a -1/-1 counter on it. If you have something that prevents it from dying to those -1/-1 counters, you can make infinite mana. The most common way to do that is Vizier of Remedies. There's also stuff like Swift Reconfiguration. And this is really nice because it gives it haste. It gets it back and gives it haste, so you can win that turn. You don't have the usual problem with that combo where you have to play your druid to cross your fingers, hope no one messes with it for a turn before you can use it. So fantastic there. Is that like, oh, I've got Devoted Druid and Vizier in my deck, is my cube, is that enough reason to put it in the cube on its own, I guess, is the question. Because I agree with you as like not a lot of decks where this is obviously great otherwise. To be like a green black deck with other low curve creatures that you really care about getting back later. The other place I do think this is interesting actually though is like Elf Ball, like combo Elf. Um, if you're doing like Wirewood symbiote stuff, like playing Elvish Archdruid with haste is really busted. Um, and there's also ways to untap it in that style of deck. So I think that's pretty interesting. And there you have like low drop creatures that you actively want to get back, right? You can just get back like Elvish Visionaries and stuff, and your symbiotes and whatever else that you need at the time. Plus the untapping your Elvish Archdruid also really good, or and then maybe you kill them with Azori or something. But I mean, where this is not a deck that's in a lot of cubes, but I think it like can be pretty good, and I think that would be another good reason to include this card. But yeah, I agree it's kind of niche. It doesn't go in many archetypes. The problem with this is it's like it's a planeswalker, but it's actually not like it doesn't run away with the game in the way that most planeswalkers do. Like getting this out early onto an uncontested board, which is exactly what you want to do with most walkers, kind of doesn't do that much unless you have like good stuff in your graveyard already, which you probably don't. But yeah, so I think it's like kind of a niche planeswalker, but I think could be really strong in certain decks.
The fact this does mill is nice. I mean, like mulch is 2 mana. With this is
Yeah,
1 more, and you get a planeswalker. Like that's
yeah,
it's not the end of the world, but yeah, it's
yeah. You could get back a Sata Wayfinder, keep
yeah. Ooh,
milling.
let's go.
Sounds
Yeah,
like a good time.
nice.
I suppose it's also if your aristocrats deck is like touch and green, this is maybe quite good there as well. Just like a bit of recursion of like get back whichever piece you need, like your Vesper Seer or your Blood Artist, or yeah, could do some stuff there maybe. but yeah, like definitely quite an archetype specific one. Okay, next up we have Mirren Safehouse, which is 3 mana for an artifact. Our first artifact, or first colorless artifact, I should say. As long as Mirren Safehouse is on the battlefield, it has all activated abilities of all land cards in graveyards. This card's really cool. I really want it to be good. I want to play like a Knight of the Reliquary and an Elvish Reclaimer and like set up some cool toolbox stuff with this. Like maybe it can be a Caracas if I need it to be that. Or I can like tap it for mana. If you put Lotus Field in the graveyard, becomes a very explosive mana rock. Instead of that, this is probably like actually just way too slow and conditional and not good would be my general inclination. Though there is a combo with it. I did find it's not a great one. It's not using necessarily great cards, but if you there's a land Griffin Sanctuary that you can tap to untap target Griffin and give it +1/+1. I think it is. If you have Mutavault and Griffin Sanctuary in your graveyard, you can make this.
Yeah.
You can activate this using the Mutavault ability. It is a Griffin. It can now tap to untap itself and give itself +1/+1. So you get infinite power on your Mutavault. That's not very good. You shouldn't put those cards in your cube. But
Mutavault's probably not outside the realm of like playable. Mutavault's probably okay.
No, Mutavault's good.
Yeah.
Griffin Sanctuary.
Griffin Canyon is the issue in this. Yeah.
Maybe if you have a changeling theme in your deck, you can put Griffin Sanctuary. Yeah, no. The more I talk, the worse it sounds.
No, it's yeah. Whenever there's anything like this, like the most classic one is probably like Necrotic Ooze. Whenever there's like a thing that gets multiple abilities of things from graveyards, basically at any point in the future now, if they print a land that has like an untap ability on it,
yeah, that's true.
That is something that will go infinite with this. So like this is unfortunately not a card for now because they haven't printed the cards to break it yet.
Sure.
At some point in the future, it'll be a commander card. It'll be something it'll be the commander cards that are only in collector boosters.
Yeah,
there'll be a random card in that for some niche thing that somehow goes infinite with this card. Like, again, this is probably like 10 years away, and then this card will shoot up.
I suppose if it was a land you could tap to untap an artifact.
Oh, that could be good. Yeah,
this would you could keep on tapping itself, and maybe you're doing something there. But yeah, as far as I'm aware, that doesn't exist yet. I think at the moment, probably the best thing you do with this is Lotus Field, which is good, but like not necessarily so good that it's worth the effort of like putting this in your deck. I mean, you've built your own it's at that point it's a 3 mana rock for taps 3 of any color. Like that's really good.
That's good. That is good.
It's a 3 mana Gilded Lotus. But it's not necessarily like so good that it's worth the times when you don't have Lotus Fields in your graveyard and it doesn't do very much.
Cool. All right, let's round it out with our final card, Sword of Forge and Frontier. It is 3 generic mana for an artifact equipment. It has equipped creatures get +2/+2 and has protection from red and green. And whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, exile the top 2 cards of your library. You may play those cards this turn, and you may play an additional land this turn, equip for 2. So this, to me, has the same problem that all of the swords have, in that they're not super playable in cube. 3 mana is a lot to play. 2 mana is a lot to equip. Plus, you need a creature that can get through for damage. I'm not a massive fan of any of the swords anymore. I don't know if, I know people like the swords. They are fun. They do big splashy things. That is cool. But the only sword I still have in my own cube is Sword of Fire and Ice, because that deals damage and draws a card. But that is one really good equipment away from coming out, if I'm honest. And this is not better than that. And it's not better than a lot of them that aren't in my cube. Like this is like Feast and Famine is a very powerful card that doesn't see play as much anymore. And this struggles from the same thing that most of the swords do. So, what's your take, James? How are you? How are you on the swords in general, or this one in particular?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, they're basically like 5 drops, right? Because you really want to be able to like hit per turn you play them. And I used to think the swords were okay in Cube, and I kind of feel like they've been power crept from okay to bad. Um, I just think they're too slow now. I think Cube is sped up. And like the effects are all really good, but they're not like so good that they can like catch you up when your opponent's going off. I don't think this is good enough. I think the swords aren't good enough anymore. I think this is like middle of the pack of the swords probably. Like the effects is good. It's you will get 2 cards off it most of the time. Like you can play a land and a spell. You can play 2 lands. And like, yeah, if you hit them, it'll be really good. It'll win you some games, but I just think you'll be better served putting like most of the other expensive threats in your deck. It's also like red and green are not actually the most crucial colors to get protection from.
The red is good for like burn and stuff, but the +2/+2 probably pushes out of the
Exactly, I
way of
can't
burn
burn it
anyway.
anyway. Yeah, and it's
Yeah, the green could be useful for kind of getting through like a chunky board state, like or
yeah.
for blocking maybe, but you don't want to be
Yeah,
playing
no,
these
green get yeah,
defensively.
yeah,
But
yeah. No, green does get like board stalls occasionally, I suppose. It's kind of unfortunate though that like you get pro red and pro green, but against the red green deck, they're really like red and green are really good at killing artifacts, so they can just kill the
yeah,
sword instead of the creature. Like the sword doesn't have protection from red and green. Yeah, I can't like I respect the sort of sword completionist point of view.
yes,
If you
that's
just
fair.
want to go full swords, then like this is not a bad sword by any means.
How many do we have now?
It feels like they should have run out of color pairs by now.
7, 8, 9.
Oh, okay. So we have one
Is that
sword left
right?
to go. Maybe 10th time's the charm.
Yeah, that'll be the one. That'll
Yeah.
be the one. Yeah. Cool. So that rounds off all the cards. Before we get you all out of here, uh, me and James are just going to go over our favorite or our top 5 cards from the set. We'll kind of take it in turns as we work towards our ultimate card. So, a number 5 from me, I have Conduit of Worlds. I think this is a really strong card. I think it had to be. It's one of the cards I'm looking forward to test. So that's kind of why I put it so highly. How about you, James? What's your number 5?
Yeah, very respectful choice. Number 5, I went for Skrelv, the fake giver of runes, because I think that's just an effect where the redundancy is really good. They protect each other. They protect a lot of your creatures. I think like white 1 drops, you never really have enough. Yeah, I went to it more on like it's not the card I'm most excited about, but I expected to see like a lot of play, so that's why I thought like I should put it on the top 5 list.
No, fair play. All right, at my number 4, I have Nissa Ascended Animist. As I said in the review, it's just a lot of magic card. I think it's going to be very good at all points in the game, and I think it's going to win a lot of games. And as you quite rightly brought up, James, I think it fills that hole that mono green is missing right now, basically.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. My Well, I went for Mercurial Spelldancer, the unblockable 2/1 that lets you copy spells. I think this is just a really solid threat. I think like really nice blue tempo creature. Like whenever you get to copy a spell, it'll be great. Kind of demands an answer pretty quickly. I think it's a really solid card.
All right, next one I can pretty much guarantee is not on your list. And number 3, I'm sticking to my guns here. I have Athari Sun's Glory, the Rabble Master bird thing. I like this card. I think it'll be good. I'm My goal for 2023 is to kill you in a game of Magic with this card. You may win the other 2, but I will win one, and it'll be fine.
Great. I look forward to facing off against that deck.
Okay, good.
Well, I'll tell you that that card is not my number 3. I'll have to leave you in suspense whether it's 2 or 1, but it's
Okay.
not my number 3. My number 3 is Conduit of Worlds. Yeah, I'm really excited for this card. I wanted to put it in 1, but I thought I probably shouldn't because I know my own biases. It's in 3. It's really cool. I want to play it.
No, fair play. No, yeah, it was on mine. It's a very strong card. My number 2, there is a bit of a bias on here because of its rarity. I have put Planar Disruption at number 2, the best pacifism in the history of the world ever. Just because I think in any level of cube, it's not in it like it is a fine card. Like the higher level of cubes, it is like still going to be like it's not embarrassing in like a powered cube or like a vintage cube. It's probably still very good, I think, in like a legacy plus like a underpowered vintage cube, that kind of thing. I think it's still playable and still solid in those environments. And everything below that, it is almost like premium removal. I think it's very, very strong. And the fact it's a common means that it will just see so much play.
Yeah, no, I agree with you so much. It is, in fact, also my number 2.
Oh, let's go, James.
Yeah,
Synergy.
yeah. Yeah, no, totally agree. I think it probably goes in Power Cube, actually. I think it's like, I don't know, O-Ring feels expensive these days. And that card's still in. I think it's really good. Okay, moment of
Fantastic.
truth, number
Yeah.
1.
My number 1, I have a Traxxa Grand Unifier. Yeah, from the moment I saw it, I thought it was a slam dunk, and yeah, it fills that hole again that I didn't know I wanted, and yeah, I think it's going to be a really, really cool card. Just yeah, Reanimator, Natural Order, have a lovely baby, and they've made a Traxxa Grand Unifier, and I think it's going to be really, really strong, and I think it goes in enough decks that it's going to be good in the cube.
Yeah, I went number 1 Nissa, actually.
Oh, nice. Yeah,
I
good.
think, I think it's kind of exactly what green needed. I like the flexibility of where you can put it on the curve. I think it's really strong. I'm gonna lose some games to it. I'm very excited about that.
No, I'd agree. There's a lot of very cool, very fun cards in this set. There's definitely we had a couple of crossovers, but there's probably going to be more tests than I initially thought from this set. I think there's going to be some interesting additions. There's some cool bonuses to strategies, and the potential opening up of some new ones as well. So that could be fun. I know we didn't talk about in our top 5, but like if we can get Hammer Time working in cube with cards like Kemba, that could be really fun. That could
Yeah,
be
that
something
could
to
be
look out for
really
as well.
sweet. Yeah. 'Cause you've got as a saga and things already in there. Could be a very nice deck there. There are also a couple more green cards that didn't make the top 5, which I think are quite good, like the 2-mana Dork and the Bloated Contaminator, the 3-mana 4/4. Like they're both very strong. Yeah, I think it's more of an impactful set for Cube than I thought it was going to be from the first few spoilers. Actually, yeah, I think it's good.
Yeah, I think some colors definitely got like green. I think by far got the most. There's probably like 4 or 5 very solid playables in like most power level of cubes here.
As I think blue very often comes out with slightly less cards than the other colors, just because the bar is so high with the broken old blue cards that it's really hard
Yeah.
for new blue cards to get there.
No, fantastic. Thank you all very much for watching, and thank you again, James, for doing this with me. It's always awesome to have you here.
Yeah, no, thanks. That was a lot of fun. Excited to try some of these cards in Cube soon.
Awesome. Awesome. No, yeah, always a pleasure to have you on. That just leaves me to say, do let us know down in the comments if there are any cards that you're excited to play with, or if there's any cards you think we've missed. We'll check them out and see what we can do in the future. Do like, share, and subscribe, all that good stuff, and we'll both see you soon. Goodbye.